So you don't believe Bill Daley? I mean, do you have concrete evidence that he somehow was involved in the parking meter deal? He advised his brother.
Well, his son worked for J.P. Morgan Chase, which owned a share of the firm that did the parking meter deal. So the Daley family has, in fact, profited. I mean, time and time again, we see that Bill Daley only takes credit for good things. I haven't seen very many of them, and refuses to accept any responsibility in anything that has gone wrong, including his role as the co-chair of Bruce Rauner's transition team and standing by silently while the governor essentially destroyed our state's finances and our social safety network. I mean, you saw people like Jim Edgar, of course, come out and say that this needed to end, and that's not what he signed up for when he participated with helping the governor. And you saw me take on Governor Rauner for 2 full years of my life, standing up for Illinoisans while Bill Daley stood by silently. So yeah, I mean, he never accepts responsibility for anything that's gone wrong. And who does that remind me of? Bruce Rauner.
So was Bill Daley lying when he said he wasn't involved in the parking meter deal?
Look, I think it's just laughable that Bill Daley looked into the camera and said that he has never advised his brother on the decisions that he made as mayor. No one believes that. So no, I do not believe that he was being truthful. I don't believe that he was being truthful when he said he didn't cheat on his test. It's semantics. Somebody else cheated. They did his test for him. In my world, that's still called cheating. And normal Chicagoans, normal people whose names aren't Daley, don't have that type of like assigned cheater to help you pass your test.
Was Bill Daley corrupt?
Look, I mean, that's for I guess, someone else to answer. I think Bill Daley represents the past of the city of Chicago, and he represents a key role in some of the worst decisions that Mayor Daley made during his caretakership years as mayor, which were the last 4 to 6 years of his term. Years where the parking meters were sold, years where they offset they got rid of the Skyway, years where people were leaving, the population loss in our city was getting worse and worse, and that wasn't addressed. The mayor didn't address pension reform.
Paul, is Bill Daley lying about the parking meter deal?
Oh, look, you know, these are the facts. Number one, J.P. Morgan went for the deal and then backed out. Number two, they were part of the structure. The organizational chart points that out. And number three, you know, both J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley, where Bill Daley's son worked, actually went after the Pittsburgh deal. And of course, the city council, you know, scrutinized that deal, and they rejected it. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of obvious. But, look, this is the important point, and I can't stress enough. I mean, I was pretty flabbergasted when I noticed in the organizational chart that the Texas Teachers Pension Fund had invested in the parking meter deal. So, you know, think about that one as we struggle to fund our pensions. But, look, the bottom line is when you've made tens of millions of dollars in the private sector, a lot of times because of your government connections, because let's remember SPC, where Daley was the executive, and the $200,000 in campaign contributions to Rob Blagojevich and the fast tracking of legislation that would have given SPC a monopoly on your cell phone bills. So the point is, this is my point. When you've made tens of millions of dollars because of your connections, because of your government connections, then you're going to get these questions, particularly when 2 years after parking meter deals, you suddenly make $15 million in salaries and bonuses, and for that matter at SBC, what, $6 million. The bottom line here is, if you're not hiding anything, release your taxes, release your property taxes. Let's have full disclosure.
Willie,
Stuff like that as well.
Is Bill Daley lying on the parking meter deal when he says he wasn't involved?
Well, I think that if you're close to your advisor, to your brother, look, if my brother is mayor of the city of Chicago and doing something, I'm going to help with my brother in terms of giving suggestion and idea, you know. So you have to read into that right there, you know.
Do you think the Burke Four are all corrupt?
I think the people standing up there with me tonight corrupt, you know.
Pardon?
I think the people standing up there with me tonight,
All corrupt?
A lot of them is corrupt, okay?
Is Paul Vallas corrupt?
No, I'm not going to say Paul. I have to take that back from him. But you look at, I think they need investigation on them, all right? Here again, I said when I was giving away my own money, they wanted to put me in jail.
Yeah, let me thank WTTW and the City Club for a rather engaging hour, and I think it was pretty clear on people's different positions. And we'll move on for election a week from tomorrow. Looking forward to it.
Bill, they said you were lying on the parking meter deal. Toni said that. Mendoza said that.
No, well, I don't know what President Preckwinkle said. She did not say that at the debate. Maybe she said it here. I wasn't lying, and that's their opinion. that's their business.
You didn't advise your brother at all on the deal?
No. I wasn't involved in it at all. Yes.
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And this is going to be an interesting show, folks, because, you know, you should be watching it if things worked out. It's the night before the election. It's February 25th. February 26th is the mayoral election in Chicago. Okay, and so we take you to WTTW. They have their little form. If you haven't seen it, you should go to WTTW.com. And they broke up the 14 candidates into 3 nights. 4 on Thursday the week before, the night, which is Monday, a week before, we had 5. Come back to that in a second. And then Tuesday, they've got 5. So watch it. And what you're about to see is not the forum, the press conference after. Better. Not that I'm better, it's just the candidates were looser, okay? And it was more focused. So you're in luck. Don't click anything. Don't go away, because if you do, you're going to miss a really good show. But you won't see Toni Preckwinkle because she's a no-show. I guess, folks, if you're thinking of voting for Toni, it's not an insult to me. She knew she could have been talking to you. She just doesn't care. I mean, she's got like $4 million, second to Daley's $8 million. So who needs this? Okay? So, but you will see Bill Daley. We haven't seen a lot of Bill. He hasn't been doing a lot of interviews, but he showed up here. Got to give him that. Look, Preckwinkle and Mendoza said during the forum, basically, they said he's a liar. They said he must have known about the parking deal, must have talked to his parking meeting, must have talked to his brother during that deal, and must have sort of laid the groundwork for getting some money to his son, Bill Daley. Okay, so we asked him about that. You'll find out when you come, watch it. We'll come back and say a word to you about that. And JSC sends Susana Mendoza do her little thing. I mean, we haven't seen too much of her, and she's tough. She's 46. She's one of there are 14 candidates in this race. You're seeing 4 of them in this press conference, and there were 5 at the forum. Most likely, 80% chance, the winners who face off in the runoff on April 2nd, the 2 people who did best but didn't get 50%, they're within these 5. I'm almost sure. Okay. So you see, you won't see Preckwinkle, you will see Mendoza, you will see Bill Daley, you will see Paul Vallas. Boy, Paul, he just got a plan for everything. He's very methodical, very careful. If you were doing this, if you were recruiting and say, who's got the skills for the job? I'm a pretty balanced guy, but I think you'd go with Paul. And, or perhaps Willie Wilson, because he ain't bought. Paul ain't bought. He's got $1 million, but that's not enough to buy him. Willie's self-funding. He ain't bought, okay? Look, that's enough for now. We'll come back and say a few words after you finish watching this press conference, and enjoy.
I just think that, Bill Daley, again, was instrumental in some of the worst decisions that impacted Chicago that we're going to be paying for decades, including the fact that he was at the helm of J.P. Morgan Chase when Chicago experienced the worst foreclosure crisis in its history, worse than any other big city in the entire country, and he profited millions off of a racist and illegal loaning scheme, and also the fact that J.P. Morgan Chase really had to settle, I think it was $50 million in penalties because of the foreclosure crisis that impacted Black and brown people. It was essentially racist. So I don't remember him ever apologizing for his role in that. And to think that he actually made millions off of it and got a huge bonus while Black and brown families in Chicago lost their homes and were foreclosed upon is shameful. He represents the past and everything that's wrong in Chicago. We need to move forward.
Did his son benefit from the parking meter deal?
His son did, yes, that's a fact. So he can deny it all he wants, like he denies that he cheated on his insurance test. But that was 46 years ago, and that's essentially where Bill Daley should remain. In the past, Chicago needs to focus on its future.
Was it wrong when you held a job in the city while you were state rep?
No, it wasn't. I worked very hard, and I earned every bit that I did working on behalf of the taxpayers of the city of Chicago, and also of the people of the state of Illinois. And again, I've always been a hard worker. I've had 2 jobs since I was 15 years old for the most part, and I come from a family of incredible hard work ethic, and people who actually don't have a last name Daley can relate to that. My parents had to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet, And I work just as hard, so I'm very proud of that work ethic.
Last question.
How would you fix the pension hole? How would you?
I'm gonna go with you, Paris, yep.
Springfield, like Bill Daley, would you support a constitutional amendment getting rid of the 3% compounded COLA?
I think that pensions are a promise, and I'm going to stand up for workers who rely on that retirement security. I think the fact that Bill Daley does not is just another example of why he is supported by Governor Rauner's #1 enabler and funder, and is essentially bought and paid for by another billionaire. So again, this is why Bill Daley represents everything that's wrong with Illinois. I thought we had finally closed a chapter of Bruce Rauner in this state, but instead he's just rearing to pop his head back up in the name of Bruce Daley. So look, we have to move beyond this. And I think Mr. Daley represents everything that's wrong and everything that's stale in Chicago politics. It's the good old boy way of doing things, the backroom deals. And frankly, I have an ethics plan that is part of my Future Now plan that's going to make sure that never again do the family members of elected officials like the Daley family get to feed at the city's trough. When I'm the mayor, those days will be over. Thank you very
How
much.
do you fix the pension hole?
Thank you.
Can you tell us in 1 minute how you fix the budget?
Well, I said before was that you got a $10 billion budget. $7 billion is in pretty much payroll, all right? Then if you look in the finance department, a lot of those dollars invested into a certain neighborhood and the same people over and over again, so you got to bid out those contracts to get the price lower so the consumer will benefit more from it. On top of that, in terms of for the people job, you got to take and cut down on overtime. You got about a $2 billion with overtime there. San Francisco and those particular places, they have a budget about 3.5 roughly. Then Chicago is $7 billion. $2 billion that I guarantee you in payroll. All right. The other thing you got to do is to take and cut out the corruption. Besides just the marijuana and you know the mag field open back up and those places, and then you get the budget begin to come down. Then you manage it the right way. All right. So you got all these particular things. Then you got to make sure you lower the taxes, get the tax lower enough. Because right now, at the tax higher, people is running outside of the Illinois, Chicago, and shopping at other places.
Another topic.
What are ways you would generate revenue since you don't do the taxes?
I think you look, if you got a service station, 2 service stations side by side, this service station over here, let's say this A, their gasoline, let's say $2 a gallon. One over here is $1 a gallon. Which one you going to, right? Okay, and then you're gonna bring more customer in also to the one for $1 a gallon. All right, but as they end that, they're not only going to sell gasoline, but they're gonna buy milk, eggs, and things like that. That is taxes as well. Then you got to take a holiday. Let's say if we gave a tax holiday. If you give a tax holiday in Chicago on a weekend, those customers that will come in from the suburban would be unreal. You know.
Willie, in the final days, how are you differentiating yourself from the other candidates?
Well, I'm not bought. I'm not bought. I mean, look, these guys getting dollars over here like $1 million. Toni Preckwinkle is already bought. I think the union paid, I guess, supported her $2 million or more, and other people is supporting. I don't look. I'm not bought. I make the decision to help the city of Chicago, but not to take and get from someone else. Now, they know the scripture said this here, you can't serve 2 masters, all right? I'm different because I'm here to serve the citizens of Chicago. I don't think you have to take the job away. I think there's about $2 billion in overtime, about a couple billion.
So would you do more than cut? Would you do more than cut over? Would you do more than cut overtime? Would you cut any personnel? 10% across the board?
I wouldn't cut job. I would say people get ready to retire, let them go ahead and retire. You know, I run it like my business, because if you don't get a hold of your budget, the people continue to pay higher tax and run out of the city of Chicago.
Where do you get candidate in, please? Can we let another candidate?
Hey, Willie, you can't.
Come on, Bill, what you doing out there, man? I Miss Ryan said I liked you, and I shouldn't have done that, all right?
Hey, Bill, come on in.
Come on, Bill, come
out
on.
there.
Come on, I'm gonna shake your hand, all right?
Take care of yourself. All right, stay healthy.
All right.
Yeah, let me thank WTTW and the City Club for rather engaging hour. And I would think I was the first candidate to say that one of the big changes in our city over the last 40 years is we've lost 400,000 African Americans, mostly middle class, that left our city. That's fundamentally changed in many ways the makeup of our city. And I set out a goal to bring our population over the next 10 years to 3 million for 2.7. 300,000 more. It would bring to the bottom line of the city's revenues about $290 million. We've got to get investment in communities that have not had them. Not just government investment, but the private sector. They have the real money. So whether it's economic opportunity funds, whether it's new market tax credits, whether it's a whole host of other things, and getting the private sector and capital in the neighborhoods for private investors, for entrepreneurs and innovators. It's not just the government's money that has to be put to work. The larger amounts of money out there in the private sector, not in government.
We're
Yeah.
going to find $1 billion in the next couple of years to put $1 billion extra dollars to put in the pension system. I don't think anyone thinks that cannabis revenue or casino is going to do that.
Yeah, I laid out, I said, look, here are all the things on the revenue side that we ought to consider. I'm the only candidate of the 14 who has said, but we must change the Constitution so we can sit down with labor and have a negotiation on both sides. Let me, on the entire issue, because you have, in the city of Chicago, you have 50,000 retirees and 35,000 present employees. That's 85,000 people, 3% of the population. That represents a $28 billion anchor around our neck. And we can't just do it on the revenue side and tax people out of the city of Chicago. It doesn't work. But we cannot even have an honest discussion, negotiation around both sides of the table, on both sides of the issue, unless we change the Constitution.
Bill,
Last question,
Bill,
guys,
on
last
policing,
question.
do you support stop and frisk?
No, it's unconstitutional. Yeah, that's what the courts have ruled, so nobody supports.
Have you advocated
So-
for it before?
No, there could be constitutional policing. I've not advocated for stop and frisk. That was ruled unconstitutional.
Can you fix the problem of too many low-income minorities being involved in crime with the $50 million? Is that enough that you referred to?
No, I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if anybody knows what the amount to solve our crime problem, okay? And it is very complex, but I think we've got a $50 million investment, just as New York and LA does in violence prevention and violence reduction programs, is a great start. And those, both police agencies in those cities tell me that that's an integral part of their keeping their crime down.
Why do you suppose it wasn't done before? By Rahm, by your brother?
I don't know, ask them.
So you would push Governor Pritzker to call for a constitutional
Yeah,
amendment on
and I've been
co-election
upfront about this. Is it, and I'm not trying to screw the retirees, okay? But on the other hand, you can't just look at the revenue and say we're going to tax everybody out of this place. And we have to have an honest discussion. Government does not exist for its employees. And I've known lots of people who are great employees, and there are today, but that's not the point of it.
Mr. Daley, is it
Yeah.
hard for you to win a change election with your last name in Chicago?
Well, I'll tell you next Tuesday.
I've asked everybody, constitutional amendment on pensions, are you open to that idea to limit the 3% compounded COLA?
Well, first of all, you're not going to get a constitutional amendment, period. You're not going to get it. Pritzker has already said no. I don't know if there's enough Republican support for a constitutional amendment. Secondly, you would not get a constitutional amendment, or you would not get Democrats to support a constitutional amendment unless there was an amendment to provide for a progressive income tax, and that will peel people off that, because the reason that the Constitution provided for a flat tax and the 8-to-5 ratio was to keep the legislature from just basically taxing well-to-do people. So it's not going to happen. So what I've done is the responsible thing. What I've done is I've laid out in great detail a plan on how I'm going to fully fund the pension, structurally balanced budgets, and cap property taxes without relying on casino money, which I believe should go into infrastructure, like lead pipe replacement, et cetera, and obviously neighborhood infrastructure projects, and cannabis, which I believe should be used to fund things like social services, such as alcohol, drug and opioid abuse treatment centers, as well as mental health and wellness, because I think we need mental health and wellness centers in each of our police districts.
In the final days, how do you differentiate?
No, go ahead. Let me take his, because you're going to follow me afterwards anyway.
In the final days, how do you differentiate yourself with your closing argument?
Well, look, at the end of the day, since since I announced in April, I've been, with great specificity, offering my proposals on how to structurally balance the budget, how to cap property taxes, how to get lead out of the water, how to stimulate economic development in the 80% of the city that hasn't seen much investment. It would have been nice if we had had time to focus on those questions and avoided some of the questions that border on, personality conflicts. But, so I think what's going to distinguish me will be the fact that I am a substantive candidate who has offered real solutions. Look, I'm taking a chance here. I'm taking a chance that people want real answers, real honest answers to the complicated issues that they're facing. How to pay for pensions, how to balance the budget, how to rebuild our police department, how to invest in communities that have been long neglected, how to get lead out of drinking water, how to revitalize a school district that has been in a steep decline since the Renaissance 2010. So, so I believe at the end of the day, and I'll tell you, the fact that we have so many undecided, and the fact that such a small number of voters have cast their ballot, have done the early voting, I think it's a positive thing from my vantage point, because I think people haven't made up their minds now. Now they're getting serious. I think in the last week they're really going to look at these candidates very closely, and I think at the end of the day I'll prevail.
With Daley's.
No, I'm going to get you last. Sorry about that.
You said you would hire more police. What do you think about Bill Daley's suggestion to have more surveillance equipment?
Oh, I don't know about the drones. Oh my God, that's kind of a scary thing. Look, what I'm talking about doing is, number one, filling police vacancies, period. Filling police vacancies and bringing retired detectives in, because even though they've been ramping up the hiring of the detectives division, it's the most inexperienced detectives division in our history. And let's do what other cities have done. Let's do what they did in London, where they brought back constables. Constables, get close to the mic, constables with investigatory experiences. And let's get this clearance rates up. Let's provide a witness protection program, because sometimes people are reluctant to come forward because they have to go back to the communities, both witnesses and victims, sometimes for years until these cases get resolved. So I'm confident that people on election day are going to ask themselves the question, number one, who can balance the budget? Number two, who can allocate resources in ways that benefit the entire community? And who has really demonstrated independence of the pay-to-play culture? And that's why I've gone to every meeting. I've talked to every group that I've been invited to, and I've been aggressively campaigning since April. In fact, on some days I forget what day it is, and I have to be reminded, because it's been around the clock, literally 12-month campaign. Look, I thought I was going to be running against Rahm Emanuel, and he was going to outspend me 20-1. I feel, now I'm running against 4 mini Emanuels, so to speak, and so I feel, collectively that's better odds. So I'm optimistic that I'm very confident that I'm going to win, because people want a mayor who can govern this city and it has not been a product of the pay-to-play culture. I've been battling pay-to-play all my life. I mean, people who go to New Orleans after Katrina or go to Haiti 50 times after one of the most devastating earthquakes in human history are not part of the pay-to-play machine in Chicago. Thank you all. Have a great night. I'm off duty now.
Well, I hope you like that press conference. I mean, that was hot. I mean, okay, Bill Daley comes out. Look, basically he knows that, he didn't say yes, but he knows that he was called a liar tonight. We're taping this on February 18th. You're watching it a night before the election. That's the mayoral election, February 26th. And you saw it, people ganged up, and they basically said, you're lying. Who could believe you don't talk to your brother, didn't talk to your brother Rich Daley when he was mayor about so many things, including the parking meter deal, which almost everybody in the city believes is awful. He said, I didn't have anything to do with that. Didn't have anything to do with my son, Bill Jr., making the pile of dough off that. That's what he told me. I asked him. You saw it. So you got to see Bill Daley. I mean, he's smooth, he's experienced, he's knowledgeable, he has $8 million. Is he corrupt? Does he represent pay-to-play in the Chicago machine? His dad was mayor for 22 years. His brother was mayor for 22 years. Rahm is the third Daley, 8 years. That's like, what, 52 out of the last 69 years, there's basically been a Daley there? You folks are going to vote Daley? Give him one more chance, another Daley? It's up to you. So that's Daley. Mendoza, she's been not out so much. but she was a little stronger in the press conference. She should have come on my show. She did fine. She holds up fine. Mr. Giangreco, her flat catcher, big mistake if she loses because my show would have put her over. You know, so, and, you know, Preckwinkle, a no-show, just doesn't show up. I cannot believe you could be alderman for 20 years, Cook County Board President for 8 years, and you don't have the balls, that's the word, not good, to show up at a press conference? Toni. And personally, I like the woman, okay? But you gotta show up. That's just, if you lose, that would be it. All right, so who we got left? We talked about Daley, we talked about Mendoza, we talked about Preckwinkle. Paul Vallas, you gotta be, you saw that here. The guy's got plans. Nobody has to tell him he can prepare because they're his plans. Nobody does white papers for Paul. He does his own. He is a reformer. He almost beat Blagojevich in 2002 by 2 points. He says he's gonna beat him. The Chicago machine, which is Daley, this time we'll see. Even though he's being outspent by Daley 8-1, he's going to do it, he says, with digital media, maybe. And you saw Willie Wilson. There's no words to describe Willie Wilson. He is a reformer. He's unbought. He's self-financed. You cannot buy a guy who's self-financed. He is an unusual Democrat. He is so hostile. He is so hostile to taxes. You saw basically Ponce, who was subbing for Carol Marine. That was supposed to be Carol. So basically Ponce said, you know, basically you're a Republican, like, and it said it with a scowl. And you know, you heard Willie, he's a reformer. He's against taxes, higher taxes. If you're a Republican and you're against higher taxes, he's with you. If you're a Democrat and you're for lower tax, excuse me, if you're a Republican and you're for lower taxes, Willie is with you. If you're a Democrat and you're for lower taxes, he's with you. He's with you. He says lower taxes will bring people back to the city, bring jobs back to the city. Okay, that's kind of the election. So, you know, you've seen enough tonight. You should know. If you haven't seen enough, go to WTTW, scout around, see the other candidates who weren't here at the forum tonight or at the press conference. But I think those 5 who were at the forum tonight, Paul Vallas, Willie Wilson, Toni Preckwinkle, Susana Mendoza, Bill Daley, I think you folks are going to make 2 of those 5 you're in the runoff, and essentially you're going to make 1 of those 5 the mayor by that person. One of those 5 will be elected on April 2nd in the runoff election, April 2nd, 2019. Just remember, you come back next week and every week to Public Affairs.
Public Affairs very much thanks Residco, our sole corporate underwriter, for helping to make the production of this show possible.